Hello, everybody. Good to be with you here again at 15 Minutes and a Big Idea. If you get a second, take a moment, like the podcast, review the podcast on where you're at, follow us on social media. All those things really help us out. I know that I've really been enjoying this journey through the book of 1 Corinthians. It's been a blessing to me personally, and if this content helps you, that helps us out. So whether it's sharing it with people, whatever it is, all that helps to advance this, and ultimately we hope that's for the glory of Christ. This is episode 283, and we're into a section that we've kind of been building towards for a while, and I'm really looking forward to. Let's dive in. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 19 to 22. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 19 to 22. What do I mean then? The food sacrificed to idols is anything? Or that an idol is anything? No, but I say the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I do not want you to become partners with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Or do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? We are not stronger than he is, are we? Today, all will be clear. Well, at the very least, the big picture of where Paul's been going for the last several verses and last several episodes, I think the last 4 or 5, will be clearer, at least the direction he's headed. We may have to go back and listen to those episodes after you listen to this one, and hopefully it'll all kind of feed in and you get one big idea of what's going on here. Big idea. The entirety of 1 Corinthians 8 through 10 has to do with food offered to idols, as we've talked about extensively, especially within the grounds of the idol's temple. Today, Paul's finally going to drop the hammer on what he's looking for the Corinthians to do and to respond to in a more explicit way, in more explicit terms. In chapter 8, he appeals to the empathy of the Corinthians. Even though there's only one God and the idol's nothing, the practice of strolling into an idol's temple and eating the food there was causing weaker Christians to then participate in that practice. However, for these newer Christians, that knowledge of the one true God and the nothingness of idols was not as deep-seated. And so in partaking of the food themselves, they were giving, at least obliquely, some sort of honor or veneration to this idol. By causing these weaker Christians to sin, these self-asserted stronger Christians, more mature Christians, were sinning against them, and as such, they were sinning against Christ. So, for the purposes of chapter 8, Paul is pointing out this practice is wrong because it causes other people to sin. Chapter 9 deals with Paul's willingness to deny personal liberty in order for people to know Christ. Maturing means sacrifice so people can know Christ. Even if it costs you, you want people to be saved so badly that you're willing to endure that, implying that if the Corinthians had had the same callous attitude, or if he had had the same callous attitude the Corinthians had towards their weaker brothers, then the Corinthians themselves might not be Christian at all. Paul then circles back to the practice of idolatry by establishing the spiritual continuity of the church and Israel, and particularly their participation in idolatry and the practices surrounding it. Last week, Paul filled in one last piece by arguing that eating together constitutes participation with those you eat with. So you got people, and you're just passing each other in the street, okay. But if you eat with them, you've joined them in some serious and real way. And that's going to bring us to our big idea today, which is don't partner with demons. Don't partner with demons. Our supporting ideas are going to be, number 1, idols are demonic. Number 2, make a choice. And number 3, you aren't stronger than God. Idols are demonic, make a choice, and you aren't stronger than God. Demonic, choice, and stronger. For this first point, Paul asks a question here. Again, another rhetorical question, I suppose. He's definitely building to something. You can kind of just check the trajectory of the argument here through chapter 10, and you can just kind of feel there's a movement to this. He's building up to something. And he doesn't want them to think that his point is about idols per se. He's already affirmed and agreed back in chapter 8 that idols are nothing. That is, there's not a personality behind the idol. It's not a being in any sense. He's already affirmed that, and this is a key point of Jewish thought. So if you read the Old Testament, say like Isaiah 44, that's a key idea. In modern terms, Isaiah's point is that there's no distinction in the essence of the atoms within a tree. So you got a tree. There's no difference in essence between the atoms that go and build the idol and the atoms that get burned in the fire. There's nothing special about them. And so because, you're just burning these, there's no actual distinction. It means the idol proper has no importance. Further, it's not as though the food that's offered to the idol literally changes substance in any meaningful way. Materially and spiritually, it's the same food. So Paul wants to be careful. His point is certainly not that the food is wrong, that the idol is real, or that the food is now tainted in some way. That's not his point in this practice, and that's key. That's key in what he's doing here and is really important for the whole text here. Okay, so what is his point? His point is that those who offer sacrifices to idols are in fact sacrificing to demons, right? They're not sacrificing to God. They're sacrificing them to dark spiritual forces of wickedness. Now, what are we to make of that? This is an important and subtle distinction, but it's crucial. The idol proper has no power at all. It has no will. It has no personality. It has no volition. It's not. There's no cognitive power in itself. However, idolatry as a construct is the result of demonic activity. We can think about the demons and the evil spirits in the Gospels and things like that. So what is that? The Corinthians are right to note that the idol is nothing. The idol is nothing. But they are incorrect to assert there's no spiritual forces at work behind the idol and in the idol's temple. Just because the idol is inconsequential doesn't mean there's not real evil there. Doesn't mean there's not real evil in that place. And all of the things going on with the drunkenness and the exploitation and the sex slavery and trafficking and all the other stuff going on there, there's real evil behind that. And Paul is saying there is a will, there is a person, there is a mind behind the curtain of the idol's temple that they're giving worship, honor, sacrifice to, and it's to demons. That demons, and we might say the devil in general, is working to enchant those around through this practice of idolatry. And just because the Corinthians can write off the idols as having no significance does not mean there are not other spiritual forces at play. To this, Paul says as transparently as possible, he does not want them to become partners with demons. Now, that might seem like a totally obvious thing for a person to think or to say, but this is really kind of the final argument where Paul puts his cards on the table for them to see his heart around why this whole practice that we've been going through for the last several months is inappropriate. Going into an idol's temple and eating that food that is in the idol's temple is to join oneself and to make themselves a partner with the demonic forces behind the scenes supporting that whole institution. Part of the reason why it's so important is that with God, it's one or the other. It's one or the other. He says, you cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Essentially, that's to say that, as our supporting point says, you must make a choice. You must make a choice. You can't dabble over here. You can either partner with God or you can partner with demons. You've got that choice, but it's impossible to do both. Notice, as before, the single cup and table here are representative of the fact that we take of communion, we're communing with Christ. And that is when Christians come together and take of the Lord's Supper. Every Christian around the world is coming to a universal table of the Lord where Christ welcomes all of us around it. And it's being used as a reference to fellowship with the Lord or with demons in some like Platonic sense, right? Which allegiance are you on? Whose table are you going to? Whose table are you going to in that sort of abstract sense? Notice the way Paul's argument has changed here, and this is really critical. His argument has changed here. He first began by arguing for empathy around this practice, saying that it was wrong because it hurts other people. However, as we've hinted at several times and now is totally explicit, Paul is saying that this practice is wrong categorically. Not that it's wrong to go into the idol's temple and partake because it hurts people. Okay, that's one reason it's wrong, but another reason it's wrong is it's wrong to go in there and do it at all. That is, if every Christian in Corinth completely understand the one true God and the nature of idols, everybody understood that, it would still be wrong to go and partake of the idol's food in their temple because it constitutes participation with the demonic forces behind it. Okay, so Paul then rhetorically asks if we are to provoke the Lord to jealousy. And the answer here is obviously no. But his assertion that participating with demons by eating food in the idol's temple will do just that because those people have been joined to Christ and God won't tolerate it. They can't ride the fence and have all the blessings of God and then all the fun stuff that they actually love and enjoy at the temple. You've got to go one way or the other. You got to make a choice. You got to make a pick here. This reflects Christ saying in the Gospels that you can't serve two masters. You can't serve two masters. Eventually, their interests are going to diverge. They're going to go in different directions, and you're going to have to honor one and dishonor the other. Further, this language of jealousy harkens back to the story's reference in verse 8 of this chapter, recorded in Numbers 25. There, the story is summarized that the people of God committed infidelity with the daughters of Moab. In many cases, the choice of Israel to join themselves to idols is represented in terms of infidelity, of harlotry or whoredom, depending on your translation. God is presented as the husband, the covenant partner, and Israel joining themselves to another brings about righteous jealousy on the part of God. Just like it's right for a spouse to demand the affections of their other spouse, it's right for God to demand the affections of his people. Paul's point is that trying to participate in Christ and be joined to the Father through him, while also being joined to demons through eating at their table, is spiritual adultery and brings about all the fervor of a scorned husband. And it's not just petty envy or something like that. It's right jealousy. It's jealousy that is right for them to demand their affections. The final rhetorical question here is, we aren't stronger than him, are we? And these last two questions really are answered by Paul's discussion of Israel's history in the last several episodes. Go back and listen to those. Provoking the Lord to jealousy is a foolish thing to do, and the plagues and the judgments against Israel are a testament that you're not going to be able to overcome him. You can't win. And so repent and don't partner with demons. So as we wrap this up, I want to quickly note that the next couple of weeks, Paul's going to answer some of the whatabouts. How does this interface and get a little more subtlety? And some of it's really tricky. I'm really excited to get into that. But they're pertinent and they're instructive more generally about what he does and doesn't mean. But he's finally, today, dropped the hammer on where he's been going. While it's true that the Corinthians, out of love, they need to feel love for their fellow brothers and sisters instead of arrogance and seek to build them up instead of tripping them up. Because of that, they need to not go eat in idols' temples. The practice of eating in an idol's temple is categorically wrong, regardless of how anybody feels about it, if anybody's okay with it. That doesn't matter. It's just wrong to do, not because it hurts others, although it's wrong for that reason, but it's also wrong because you're joining yourself to dark spiritual forces of wickedness. Now, I do want to say this, because this is one where we've got to be careful, but we also need to be thoughtful. We don't need to jump to superstition, but we do need to realize that there are places on this planet where humans have given enemies of the cross a foothold. Places where there's nothing wholesome going on. And we should not go to activities and participate in activities there, even if that activity itself is wholesome. I mean, eating food is a wholesome thing to do. There's nothing wrong with eating food. That's a wholesome thing. But the location matters. Even if you're not involved in the unwholesome activity per se, being in that place where the activity is happening and participating with the people by eating or doing something connected with the event means you are a participant in that activity. And so we need to realize that matters. That matters, that if there's a level of unwholesomeness going on, a level of sin, if that's what the event is about, we shouldn't go there, period. And we might say, well, what about to drag somebody? Okay, yeah, I got you. Drag somebody out. There's like 0.5% of allowable cases, but in general, if we're going to go there and be a participant in any way, then we should not go. We should not go because we're joining ourselves to something dark. So, as we ask that and give you some questions here to ask, do you keep a tight rein on the places you go? Do you police yourselves and discipline yourself when it comes to the places on this planet that you take your body? Are you diligent to guard the GPS coordinates where you go or do not go? Are there places that you're going where sin is glorified, even if you're not participating in the sinful activity itself? Are you going there to observe or to get a contact high off of it? Do you take part in activities at those places where sin is glorified? Are you allowing sinfulness and sinful influences to creep into your life through this? Do you need to fight sin and temptation and find the way of escape by never going to the place where sin is magnified and sin is taken place? Places where people create the constructs for the purpose Thanks so much for joining us today here at 15 Minutes and a Big Idea. Today's big idea: don't partner with